What's up, everyone? Beast Mode back here with another video. So today I wanted to discuss the top 8, or my prediction for a top 8 deck list at Rulers, which is this weekend, this Saturday. I'm hoping to play. I am invited. I top 8'd the event last year, so of course I'm motivated to at least top 8 again, hopefully get a win, but depends on um, family situation, and the time is not the greatest, but we'll see what we can do. But anyway, I wanted to talk about what I think will top the event. So when it comes to Rulers, this is an invitational. It's considered by many to be like quote unquote the world championship. All of the best players are playing in this event. So when I prepared for Rulers last year myself, I more or less went on, and again, I'm not even sure the players that are invited this year, but last year I had an idea of some of the people that were invited and what they typically play and what I expected to see. So I could discuss my deck from last Rulers in depth a little bit, but it's pretty outdated. The side deck was really important. I wasn't expecting to play any Lightsworn because I felt that most of the players that were playing at Rulers were didn't really want to just casino deck their whole tournament experience. You know, that deck is very much based on how you're drawing, or if it's your day or not. It really limits the amount of skill you have. Essentially, you could draw poorly with the deck and just not be able to win. So I didn't expect to see any Lightsworn, but unfortunately, round one, I played Lightsworn. I was able to win, and the Christiasworn deck, which was really the first time we saw that deck, I actually get to play it in top 8, and I wasn't really sure what the deck did, and I lost game 3. So I was trying to prepare based on what I felt the field was going to be, and that's kind of how I build all my side decks. And I was off. I didn't have any light mirrors in my sideboard. I didn't have any skill drain, so I was fortunate enough to win one round against Lightsworn, but lost to Christiasworn. So similar to what I would do this year. I'd probably have an idea, and I don't even know the players at this time that are invited, to be honest. I haven't been paying as much of attention. Maybe I should look at the list and see, and just have an idea of what decks I expect to see, because typically players are playing what they're comfortable with. There's always somebody that's going to come with something innovative, and we tend to see some of the best, top secret decks come out at Rulers because people have been labbing these decks up all year, and then they showcase them at the grand stage. So again, I'm going to go through some of the decks that I think will be in the top cut and top 8 that is, and maybe we can formulate a side deck based on that. So obviously Blackwing is more than likely going to top the event. It is a very common deck played, especially by top players. It's extremely strong. I would be highly surprised if one didn't top. Now, I don't think that 4 or 5 are going to top, but I do think that we'll see at least one in the top cut. It typically tops. I think there was like one event that it didn't top, which was unbelievable. Everybody was so surprised, and we thought that maybe the whole format was going to change, but then it just, like, the next event, it was like 4 or 5 of them right back in top cut again. So I do think that we will see Blackwing in the top cut. A lot of great players qualified on Blackwings throughout the year, so I would expect that we will see some top players playing it. Which this is no surprise, of course. This deck here is surprising. I do think that we will see Dragon Turbo in the top cut. The deck is extremely good. Specifically, the 2 players that may play the deck, most of you know Ghost Rider and Hydro Pump. I'm not even sure. I'm pretty certain they're both invited to Rulers. I'm not sure if they're playing the deck or not, but if either of them are on the deck, there's a good chance that this deck could top, because they're both great players and they know this deck in and out. So I do think that there's a good chance that this could make the top cut just because of those players alone. And I've said this in other videos. I think that decks are not nearly as important as the players piloting them. So more or less, let's use Cat Synchro, or Cat Plant rather. Snack, a phenomenal player, great player. That deck is a B tier deck. If you hand that deck to myself, even I wasn't able to top with it. If you hand that deck to a bunch of people, the deck's just not good enough to get you there. But Snack is a great player, plays the deck for a year straight, and was able to top events with the deck. So that's kind of my point, that I think that players are way more involved in terms of getting of a deck success. So I do think that some of these more quote-unquote obscure decks that you don't typically see, or you see a lot of people that don't really know how to play the deck and they play it and then they're out round 1 or 2, and you just assume the deck isn't good, but it's more or less the players piloting them. So I do think that somebody playing Dragon Turbo that is experienced, the deck is good enough to top and win. Just if you're having a good day, it can definitely win. Here's another deck, similar idea with Diva Hero. For a period of time, we thought that this deck was like dead, and it obviously has its inconsistency issues, which has been kind of worked on over the past year. There are quite a few players I know personally that typically play this deck. Obviously, the biggest one being a true hero, pretty much tops every event he plays. I know my teammate Chai T, I'm not sure if he's playing or not, was able to top with the Diva Hero build. And of course, Oscar topped some of the in-person RBETs. I don't know if they play online or not, but with a similar build, just a little bit more traps. So Diva Hero definitely has a strong chance of topping. And of course, there's going to be other players that I'm just not thinking about off the top of my head that play this deck. So I've played it. Maybe there's a chance I play it. Who knows? It's definitely strong enough to top. If you're drawing well that day, it's the best deck of the format. If you are drawing average and or lower, it's difficult to win unless you're experienced like some of the players I mentioned. So I would not be surprised to see one of these decks make it the top cut. Typically, this deck is like known for getting second place for whatever reason, because I think that I'll speak for myself. When one tournament, the Deck Devastators tournament, I went like 7-0, and I was just running so hot with the deck. And then I got into Top Cut, and then I finally started seeing my double Malleys in opening hand. So it's kind of one of those things where I feel like you can ride the wave for a while, and then sometimes that wave comes crashing down. You just hope it's not top 8. But anyway, I do think we see Diva Hero. So we've covered Blackwing, Dragon Turbo, Diva Hero, maybe one of each. Who knows? Vayu Turbo. Excuse me. I think that this is probably the best deck to play at this tournament. I just feel like maybe I should play it myself. I'm just not experienced enough with it. I did do some testing mainly for videos with it, and I've said this a few times, I felt very impressed by the way the deck flows, the way it's built. I think it's even getting more explosive now. This is a recent build with the return. They're playing Chaos Sorcerer with return. For a while, this card was thought to not be good, but it seems to be gaining more momentum. It seems to be picking up because it adds another explosive element to the deck. Now you don't have to rely on just Dark Arm and the Burial as like explosive plays. You also have Return, which is like Zombie's whole existence is because Return is so powerful. Now Vayu has it. So I would not be surprised if probably 2 of these decks get into Top Cut. I do know quite a few players, great players that play this deck. And again, these are just off the top of my head. I know 10-Foot has topped many tournaments with it. Arc pretty much pioneered the deck, so I wouldn't be surprised if he's on it. So of course, there's many others. I think this is Ludo's build, and he can play like every deck at a high level. So there's a chance that he could be on this deck. So it's possible that this deck could win the whole event. If there was like odds to win a whole event, this deck would definitely be favored just because of it's had such a strong 2023. It's won multiple events. It's just an overall good deck. Sideboard is so good versus some of the top decks like Frogs. Zombies, obviously Royal Oppression is just strong against zombies. So I do think that this is going to be everywhere at Rulers. And then we will have Hero Frog. So I do think there'll be some version of Frogs, and I use Hero Frog as the example because it's most commonly known, but Rognok has been playing Frogs forever, and he is on some like Gear Town. I don't know, it changes a lot, but last time I've seen he's on some Gear Town deck, so it's possible that type of Frog tops because he's a great player too. But I'm not sure if Fraser Smith is playing or in this tournament or not. I know he doesn't play a lot of online tournaments from what I remember, but if he's playing, there's a very strong chance you see this deck in the top cut. 10-Foot has also been piloting this deck a lot, so again, and I'm not trying to just discredit other people who are playing the deck. These are just players off the top of my head. So I would not be surprised if we see one of these decks in the top cut, maybe 2. The problem is sideboards just kind of out this deck pretty easily nowadays, but of course these better players are prepared for that, and the sideboards, look at the sideboards here, changing these have real traps here. So like I said, I think most of the innovation for this deck at this point is going to be in the sideboard just to kind of counter what your opponent's doing. So I would not be surprised to see a Hero Frog or a Frog variant. We have, so this is some of the kind of the more or less rogue decks. This fish deck, now this is an old version. This is James Ark's deck from, I don't know, a couple years ago. I just found it and downloaded it. I know that he has an updated version, but I didn't feel like it was necessary for me to go build the exact version that he topped with, I don't know, a week or 2 ago, because he's probably changed it already or tweaked it, so it may not even be up to date. But this here is kind of gaining very much gaining a lot of popularity. It's definitely on the ladder. I've seen a lot of people playing it. People are buying out like the eels and everything from online sites. So I know that this deck is extremely complicated to play. From what I hear, there's like a whole algorithm and spreadsheet and certain like lines and OTKs. And I'm going to shout out his channel. James Ark has a YouTube channel. I think it's The Professor. And you can check out, and he actually speaks a little bit about the combos, and very intelligent player, and has built, quite a few decks for the format, and refined and/or has, had some tech choices for even zombies with Ultimate Offering and stuff. So he's always changing up the format, in other words, and innovative. So I would definitely, if you're interested in this deck, check out his quick videos, and I think he's going to get a little bit more involved in the future. But the deck is pretty complicated. It's very good. People just like to say that this deck is like a worse version of Frogs. I couldn't tell you one way or the other. I don't play it, but if he's on this deck and he's playing, there's a chance it just tops, because he's a great player and he understands the ins and outs of this deck. Again, if this is picked up by someone like myself who has no idea, then, I'd probably be out round one. So I would not be surprised if Fish does make the top cut. Maybe there's other people who have been practicing the list since he released it, so there's a chance. I just don't know. Again, I'm not even sure the entire list of people who are qualified. So, and this is the other deck list I wanted to cover here. So, I'm not sure if I'm playing zombies or not. I could play Diva here. There's a few options I have, but this seems to be the new spice as well. It's between this and Frogs as of late. This deck here I've done some testing with, and it definitely is much better against Frogs, like game one, than it used to be, just because of the instant fusion plays. I am not convinced that this deck beats Value Turbo at all. I watched some of the replays of this deck, especially during the tournament run, and I'm not convinced just from what I've seen. If anything, I feel it loses much harder to Blackwing and Value Turbo. Royal Oppression destroys this deck. Vanity Fiend destroys this deck. I do think that zombies will make the top cut. I'm not saying it's going to be me, but I do know quite a few zombie players who are very good with different versions of the deck. Hero zombies, Silchus, I'm not sure if he's playing or not, but again, there are other versions of zombies. I think that this has just been the flavor of the month. I'm not saying this deck is bad at all. I just don't know if it helps solve some of the Frog matchup, but then also creates more of a problem versus the Blackwing Value matchup, which in reality, the deck just loses to Royal Oppression no matter what. So it might just make sense to play something like this because it is more explosive, and you lose to Royal Oppression, you just lose to Royal Oppression, you don't care. But I wouldn't be surprised if zombies make the top cut. It is a difficult deck to pilot, and this deck is even more complicated just because of the instant fusion, which creates even more synchro lines that you typically never had access to before. Like level 6s were pretty much all you made. Occasional level 8s, which were pretty clear. When you had Plague Spreader in the graveyard, you just make a level 8. Now you have to consider level 7s. You have to consider which instant fusion targets you want to use because of the fact that some of them are dark. This one also makes Arcanite Magician, so there's definitely a lot more lines with this deck. It's more confusing. It's a little bit more complicated too, but I do think that a zombie deck will make the top cut. I'm not saying it's going to be this version or not. I do just want to stress the fact that this deck loses harder to the cards that it typically loses to already, so there needs to be a little bit of refinement, I think. But the deck is really fun. So just to recap, I think we're going to see Blackwing. I think that's pretty obvious. I do think that a Dragon Turbo deck will make the top cut. I do think a Diva Hero deck will make the top cut. Value, I wouldn't be surprised if one or two of these decks make the top cut and possibly win. Hero Frog or some type of Frog variant, whether it be Machine Frogs or Diva Frog. Again, some type of Frog variant depending on who's piloting the deck. I would not be surprised to see a Fish OTK deck. I just think that the deck is not well understood right now, and I think it's complicated, and there are a few great players playing it, and I think that they can probably take advantage of the fact that I don't even really know how to stop this deck right now. I probably should figure it out before Saturday, but that'll be some homework for myself. And then I do think zombies will top just because I think myself and Silchus both topped last rulers with zombies. Now, that was over a year ago, or about a year ago, so the format is significantly different. Obviously you saw that I did not include Hero Beat, Diva Hero Beat. I just don't think that deck is that great compared to the field. It can definitely top. I wouldn't be overly surprised to see it there, and we're just making a video to have some content, and we're trying to talk out what I think will be in the top 8. I have made these videos for pretty much every big premier event in the past, and I'm often wrong, but sometimes we hit, and I just don't think Diva Hero Beat has enough to win a tournament, so I don't think that these players are going to why play a deck that you don't think can win the whole event? That's kind of how I feel. Like, sure, you can top, but if you don't think that your deck has a shot at winning the whole event, then you probably shouldn't be playing it. So That's going to be it for today. If you guys are not subscribed, I'd highly recommend it. We are going to be starting War League probably. It's definitely going to be 2024. We're going to narrow down a date. The BCS tournaments will start up again probably in January. If you guys would like to become a channel member, that will help fund the BCS tournaments. And again, pretty much all of that money is just going to go into prize pools. So the tournaments will still be free. Just a way to give back to the players that are playing and winning. So with that being said, I'll see you all on the next one.